We will have a conversation today, and it will be, a lot of things to be talked and presented. And we are considering this trial against industrial crimes and others from one specific kind of behavior, which is the corruption and the continuity of this corruption by the lenient behavior as itself, which implies do not act properly by the lack of will or by the lenient intent as itself. It means that you never had the integrity as legal accomplishment. You do not have satisfied the need as use of power. This is a misuse of power. The first issue that we will have. We will check that we could observe in the past some issues, and it will be very fast. The first one, the relation between different sides can be presented as a new side by the corruption of both, which implies the loss of integrity. And if you do not act, indeed, you lost the capacity to claim the issues by integrity. It's quite simple to get. And we are having the notation as A and B. If you must do the dismiss or the destitute, and you do not have this, you didn't have the integrity as application of the law by the lack of capacity to do or have the law applied. It's only by you. It's all your fault. Then we will check that this, but it's only by you, your intention as a gap impacting the legal premises, combine both and bring your micro individual behavior sometimes with a density so huge that will expose for sure the state, the corporative area, the government by failures integrated all with different movement as integration. We consider that here they didn't got yet entirely compromised by failure, acting as a unique circle or a unique dimension circling their own purpose as gain. We will observe that this analysis, indeed, it's a humble presentation about this industrial portfolio under systematic violation and requires the conviction of all offenders integrated as a system, individualized by other ways at the public budget Brazil, affecting we all. And we are affected. We are equally concerned with this kind of thing that we could prove before as standardized pattern or rule of thumb, the logical gap or the evasive behavior, since your single and individualized decision or the decision at your company or department until your entire conjuncture. And this, of course, threatened we all. We'll check that the behavior that we observe one more time goes on east, west, and center. Connection side to side and interconnection by the common area. And if this common area is illegal, the interaction is illegal. It's the pandemic crime observed on present time. And this pandemic crime indeed allows this accusation against corruption, criminal association, transnational organized crime, sometimes protected by public departments that do not have the proper application of the law by the lack of will, which implies do not have the integrity as legal accomplishment, and this is a wrongdoing. One more time. And you, judicial power, get in touch with all those issues one more time, which indeed is a review. And we will observe that, for instance, we had one very curious case in Brazil reported about the agribusiness, which was related with tax evasion. And the prosecution didn't have, this issue reported, for instance, at the security force. Didn't they have? I'm asking you, because you must get in touch with this. If you are equal by obligation and rights inside this security forum, U.S. judicial power, you can request this information and maybe try to understand how this behavior goes by this institution named the prosecution, that indeed presents the proof structured after the police activity for the judicial power in Brazil have a decision. But once in a while, we observe that the judicial power in Brazil are having decisions offered as a market, kind of, they are selling the state power. And this kind of thing will threat we all if they do this to obtain advantage and gains. We will consider maybe have this model here in a very first moment, one more time, and we will check that is like this. We have the different areas, I would say, which can be only considered the regular area, public or corporate, with failures inside public departments and corporate offices. And the fusification of things in a concurrent field of interest for transference as stimulus without the proper financial control about this flow, which impact the use of the budget by the misuse of chairs complained by the do not having the integrity as legal accomplishment, changing the economic value by the type of flow, and the valuation, of course, that won't be easily presented to be reported on registries and budgets, and the fusification of them all indeed put them all equally guilty. And this kind of value is one of the reasons to request a formal request at this very first moment to the Embassy of Portugal and the Embassy of US, if this judicial power in charge, which can be maybe the American judicial power, but this judicial power in charge consider that is valid and possible my formal request to cut my relation as blood with blood and soil as Brazil. It means I do not would like to be a Brazilian anymore by the kind of evaluation that you have. I'm asking you, requesting to have this analysis supported by the Embassy of Portugal, maybe the Embassy of USA, by the freedom that they sustain all the time as a blast on their own preamble, not respected by Brazil in the same way that do not respect their own constitutional guarantees as their free will. And of course that this is one thing as our very first issue presented here. We will check that this model indeed allow us, one more time, it means that we kind of are having the permission to research the environment from my righteous compensation as a position with is clearly presented as a financial paper, which is a negotiable instrument operated by factory, with the criminal research from banks account, budget decision, contracts and signatures, to do not have or have a new taxonomy against that falsification already observed, because it's another evasive behavior by other ways. And as we told you in the very beginning, we will have maybe a lot of conversation today, and by the time that things are presented, I'm not talking with Brazil. Indeed, I'm trying to offer here the request and appeal for analysis to cut my relation with Brazil by soil and blood. It means I don't share those values. By the evaluation that we had since 1988, that I considered by my creeds and the things that I believe something repulsive. The database Sigma as a comparative model from micro and macro or different patterns by Fibonacci with distribution allowed us to get the density of arguments since one single operation until the entire conjuncture. We could have the trending as -1, which is the corruption, and recently was proven against this creditors committee and the legitimacy of this creditor, even the legitimacy of the judicial power in charge, as we told you at the blog Risk Report 2022, tracemay.blogspot.com. The violation against my basic rights and guarantee will cross the limits and the bounds of your own constitution and constitutionalism. Will evidence by this your lack of capacity to apply the law against this behavior or illegal segmented on budget, we've continued since 1988 as a criminal organization who have declared as transnational organized crime, acting on fintech, on white-collar crime, acting by treasons of the state power, misusage of prerogatives, or changing the perception of things, trying to put the qualities that you fight against during all this period. For instance, trying to have my qualification as a pedophile, a criminal offender, a sexual offender, a drug dealer, a terrorist, an enemy of democracy, or something like this. By all these, I do not share the values with Brazil, and I am requesting one more time to the judicial power supported by the American Embassy and the Embassy of Portugal, plus all European councils, to observe if it's possible to cut my relation with blood and soil as Brazil to do not be a Brazilian anymore. We'll finish this part here and then we'll move forward with no hesitation.